The Sandy and Toddcast is a Mindgarden Media podcast in association with
Screw You, Todd
Productions.
Broadcasting from two very different yet magical places not found on any map. Get ready to discuss the strange, weird, ghostly, crazy, spooky, and odd things that take place around us each and every day, all while having a little bit of fun. This is the Sandy and Toddcast.
Welcome to the Sandy and Toddcast. She is Sandy.
He is Todd.
And our Ghost Hunting 101 series continues with an episode on spirit boxes.
Spirit boxes. Everybody has their own opinion on spirit boxes, Todd.
So yes. And so basically, if you're in the know, you know kind of what it is. But a spirit box is basically a radio that has the ability to scan through channels either slowly or quickly, AM or FM, or in some cases both, to see if energies and spirits might be able to manipulate the transmissions coming through to actually speak to the individual asking questions. That's a simple way of putting it.
Yes, and I like it. I do like the spirit box. Like I said, a lot of people have differing opinions on the spirit box. I don't depend on it 100% all the time. Things have happened to me in the past couple of years that have made me believe in it much, much more.
Yeah.
I think that me experiencing things that I cannot explain away easily with the spirit box has really changed my opinion more. I used to think it was very hit or miss, and I think it is. I think sometimes it can be very hit or miss. But as my understanding of the spirit world sort of evolves and my experiences help that along, I've sort of started to realize that it's going to be, just like in life, nothing is ever really predictable. Neither is the spirit box. And just because you use it once and you get fantastic results that make complete sense, it doesn't mean that the next time you use it, you're going to get anything. And one of the downfalls of it is that I think a lot of people expect it to be great every single session. And that's just not how it works.
I also think, too, like with many pieces of equipment and many investigations, it depends on the individual asking the questions and the energy in the room. It's not just a piece of equipment that will always work. I think it depends on so many things.
I was going to say one of the big ones is mindset.
Yeah.
You know,
intention,
if you're
right?
in a room with a lot of people and half of them just think it's a big joke, I don't necessarily know. I mean, let's face it, spirits are not stupid. They know, they can feel the energy in the room. They are energy. They can understand when someone is being a jerk, and they can understand when someone is truly trying to communicate and help them. And I think that makes a huge difference. I think the mindset of the people using it is very huge. Now, there's a couple of different types, and they've evolved over the years. I have the red one. It's called the SB box. I can't remember what exactly it's called, but it's the red one. You just type in spirit box and it's going to come up because it's very, very common. And I like it because you can actually put a card in it and save your spirit box sessions and play them at a later date, which I always forget to do. So I end up just bringing my digital recorder and setting it next to it, and it works just as well. But I do like that feature. I do like the fact that it's AM, FM. There's different speeds. You can actually do it backwards, which is kind of a neat test to see. Just to kind of see if you get anything and what you'll get. There's a whole bunch of different modes. And in the past couple of years, I've been quite successful with it. We've talked about it plenty of times. I have contacted my really dear friend who passed a few times, and every time things come through that I just can't explain away. We tried it with Dave's family, a couple weeks ago, and we got some really neat things that I've never experienced before, which was cool. So, it's hit or miss. You kind of have to take it with a grain of salt, but then once you get something that you can't explain away, it's sort of mind-blowing.
So I have the SB7, which is like the one that it's the little black one, and it can do all the things. The only thing it can't do is you can't put a card in it and save your session. So you do have to use a digital recorder to do that. My first one was called the Shack Hack. And what it was there was a radio that you could buy from a company called Radio Shack back in the day. And we're
old.
Yes. You could go online and watch videos or get information on how to cut one single wire in it. And that would allow it to scan quickly, either forward or backward. But it literally was from Radio Shack. And it was the first one I ever had. And actually, it worked really, really well. Somebody stole it on me. Because when you go, sometimes when you go to these investigations with large groups, your equipment starts... there's a IR light for your camera that's already gone, and there's I had a lot of stuff walk away over the years. I think I know who has it, but at any rate, or who lost it. But I have the SB7, and again, it's one of those things where I've been in investigations where it's used, and I don't necessarily always agree with the quote unquote findings of the SB7 or the Spirit Box.
Right.
I really want to be wowed by it. And there have been times when you've done your sessions and we hear your name over and over and over, and also your
crazy.
Full name, which is, that's 3 syllables and stuff like that. So it really has to wow me before I'll go, that was pertaining to the question I just asked. Because sometimes it's just like, are you here with us? Are you here? And then you hear rodent. Okay, well, that doesn't,
exactly. And it's so important to not go with that. Okay, so if you hear,
are you the ghost of a mouse? Right?
Are you calling me a rat?
Right.
Kind of thing. So, sometimes that's what bothers me about Spirit Boxes. Not so much the Spirit Box itself, but when people use it and try to adapt it to the words that come through.
Yeah.
And I'm like, don't do that. Please don't do that, because you're just leading yourself in a direction that is not correct, is not right. You will occasionally get random things.
Sure.
And one of the really interesting things that we encountered, and it was on a very similar device. It wasn't the Spirit Box, but it was a similar device. Was we have what's called a Tempest. And a Tempest is very similar to the Avilis. And what happens is it will take the readings, the environmental readings from the air and the electrical fields around us, and it will turn them into words. And we were doing an investigation in a bar that had apartments above it. It had a very old history, and things were coming through that at the time didn't really make any sense, but afterwards some of us were trying to equate the words that came through with other things. Now, one thing that's really important to remember is that you never really know for sure who you're going to be communicating with. There are times when you may be communicating with someone that has words in a different language that they might have used or things. So you really should be paying attention to everything that comes through and not just automatically discounting. Now, that's different than rodent or banana. How many of you are here? Watermelon.
Right.
That's a little odd, but always be very mindful of what's coming through and think outside the box, because sometimes it may actually really make sense. I do think that, and that's a good point, Todd, about the 3 syllables and things like that, because in theory, a spirit box is going through these signals so quickly that you shouldn't have more than one syllable coming through if it's catching a word from the radio signal. But when you get entire sentences, when you get phrases, that's something to really pay attention to, because in theory, that's not supposed to be happening. We used your spirit box when we were in Plainfield, Wisconsin.
Right.
When we went to the cemetery where Ed Gein and his family are buried. And I remember we were standing there like looking over our shoulder because we thought any minute now the cops are going to come. But nobody showed up, and we actually did a spirit box session right there at the graves with the family. And we did get a few things that were interesting that came through. Nothing crazy, but we did get a few interesting things. For me personally, and I know that Christina Bloom, the psychic medium who is just phenomenal, I'm very proud to call her my friend. And she is part of our group apps, Adirondack Park Paranormal Society. She's in Wisconsin, where you are.
Right.
And she does not really care for spirit boxes for the reason that she doesn't like all the noise.
Yep.
And I can completely understand that. One of the methods that you can use for a spirit box is called the Estes method. And that is essentially, and they use it a lot on kindred spirits.
Right.
Essentially what you do is you take a pair of noise-canceling headphones and you either close your eyes or you use a blindfold, because what that does is it's sort of sensory deprivation. And you plug it into the spirit box. You are the only person hearing that noise come through. And what it's supposed to do is help you focus much more and be able to understand the things coming through much more easily. I love this method. I think it's fantastic. But alas, that method is certainly not for me. I have a real problem with the noise that comes from the spirit box. It's very difficult for me. And I have, until I've used the spirit box, I never had a problem like this. And what I think is happening is that, and I think Christina kind of feels the same way, is when you're a psychic, when you're a medium, when you have any kind of abilities like that, where you're getting these messages coming through, it's very difficult and very distracting to have that noise. And a lot of times, when I do the Estes method especially, I can't tell whether I'm getting voices from the spirit box or I'm getting voices from spirit directly. And the noise is really harsh for me. And so she's not a big fan of it. I am a huge fan of it, but only in certain circumstances. For example, I do not like to do the Estes method, and I'm not really good with long-term spirit box sessions. I prefer to do short, maybe 10-minute sessions, and then it's overload for me. I like to record them so that I can go back and listen to them after the fact. And even then, when reviewing them, I can only do about 2 or 3 minutes at a time. And I prefer to get spirit messages directly than be too involved with the spirit box. Some people love it. Some people love to go under and do the Estes method, and they can hear things that are amazing. To me, it's just too confusing for my brain. I cannot tell the difference between spirit messages and spirit box messages a lot of times. And so I can't tell whether they're talking to me directly or they're talking to me through the box. It's very difficult for me. But that doesn't mean that it's not an amazing tool that you can use. But I tend to agree with Christina. It's a little bit too much for her as well. And I always wonder if there are other psychic mediums out there who have the same kind of issue with spirit boxes. I don't know that all people who are psychic are also investigators. Some people aren't. Some people are just psychics and psychic mediums. But if you are an investigator as well, I can imagine that you might be having that same kind of idea.
Yeah. And I think, too, for people who aren't psychic, sometimes it's a little much. You know?
It is. It is.
It is a great tool, and I do like using it, but not all the time.
I don't think you should make it the center point of your investigation. I think you should take it with a grain of salt. I think you should try it, maybe even try it twice. Try it once in the beginning of your investigation, maybe try it a little bit at the end of your investigation. I don't think it should be a tool that's used consistently throughout an investigation, because I think there are so many other things that you could be using, including yourself. Including your own intuitive self. We're all intuitive on some level, and you don't want to be so concentrating on one method of investigation that you miss out on all the personal feelings and experiences that you could be getting through an investigation.
I think it's a tool to use that for those who are very, very interested in having an experience. If you are trying too hard to make something happen, you can use blips and small words and things like that to create the illusion that you're having some sort of response. And so
yes.
that's why you're right. It should be a part of the investigation, but it doesn't necessarily need to be part of the full investigation the entire time.
It's highly suggestible. I hear when I review things, I hear things all the time that are like blips, and they could be a word, but I immediately discount them because they may not be a word. They may just be, as it randomly scans through, it may just be it stopped for 1 second longer on something, and it's just something that I want it to make sense. I want it to be Sandy. Unless it's 100% the word or phrase that I can understand and use in context, I disregard it.
It kind of reminds me of people who will, take pictures of buildings, and there's something in the window and it's pixelated, but you can kind of see what looks like a face. And then all of a sudden it's the man in the window, and, he's holding a knife and all that kind of stuff. Same thing for me with the spirit box. It's like maybe you just came across a commercial that had the word fountain in it, or had the word, who knows, right? A talk radio station that, the guy's name was Bob and he was being introduced. You really have to be careful with it. But again, if you're someone who's investigating and every bang is a ghost and every spider web touching you is a ghost and every word that comes from the spirit box is from another dimension, then it's just like everything else. Nothing actually proves anything. So like you said, be realistic with it. Again, not every bump in the house is a ghost. Not every door that slams is a ghost. Not every curtain that blows in the breeze is a ghost. So, try to find the alternative options of what it could be, and then put it into perspective of what you were asking, what your intentions were when you were asking those questions, and see if it really fits.
The more you use it, the more accustomed you become to it, the more you kind of understand the workings behind it. And even now, like, I'll hear things, and I fortunately have equipment that gives me the ability to sort of slow things down a little bit, to enhance them a little bit, to quiet a little bit of the background noise. You still want to keep it as natural as possible, but I am able to enhance it a little bit. And but even then, I'll send it to you. I'll send it to Dave. I'll say, Dave, can you come up here to the studio for a second? I want to run this by you, because it's really important to me that in my review, in my research, I find the things that everybody, or at least most of us, can agree on as being what I think I heard. I have been very blessed with great hearing, with really good, with the ability to kind of discern A from B. My eyes suck, but at least my hearing is very good. So I can sometimes hear things that other people can't hear. Is that frustrating? Yeah, a little bit. But I always try to get other opinions on it before I say definitively it's this, it's that. I mean, granted, it's very hard to discredit Miss You Sandy in the thing when I'm talking to someone who is a very close friend of mine, or I love you too, when that is the vibe of the conversation I'm having with the spirit box. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
I asked, did you see it? And I get very clearly, seen it. You can even hear the N at the end pronounced, seen it. In context, it's very hard. But by the same token, I'm going to send it to you or Dave because I want you guys to hear it. And I want you to say, okay, you're not insane, because it's very important not to get too emotional about these things. You have to keep you have to be very neutral on what you're doing, and you can't let your emotions get too involved. You can let them get involved during the session, but not when you're reviewing, because that can skew things a little bit.
Yeah.
They do have a spirit box out. It's called the SB11 that is noise canceling. So what it does is it takes away a good portion of the static, the white noise. And in theory, it's supposed to just leave the words or the phrases out there for you to listen to hear. When that came out, I was like all excited because I thought, oh, this would really help. I didn't find it that useful. I didn't find it to work exactly as I had hoped it would work. It's more complicated, and I'm a -6 on the techie scale.
Yeah.
You have to get the settings just right. And it was a little more complicated, and I just didn't feel like I was hearing things the way that I should be hearing them. I did sell it and went back to the traditional spirit box. And I think for some people that might work. It was about $225. So it's a little bit more expensive. So I think if you're going to try it, you really should be prepared to not like it. You know what I mean? If anything that you pay a lot of money for, just prepare yourself, because if you're going to spend that kind of money, then you should really be ready if you don't like it and have a plan B, like I'm going to sell it, I'm going to do this with it. But I'm glad I tried it to see what it was like, but I went right back to the traditional spirit box.
There's one more element to all this, and that is it's known as a portal, right?
Yes.
A portal box. And basically what it is a spirit box, and the audio is kind of put through a bunch of different filters to filter out some of the static, put in some reverb and some echo to try and elongate some of the words that are coming through. You can buy them that are pre-made, but they're literally $1,000 or more. Or you can kind of create your own, again, using instructions on YouTube and things like that. Have put together kind of a makeshift one to try that out a little bit. I find it difficult to hear the words through the echo and the reverb and all that kind of stuff. And when I've seen them used, I just don't know. Now, I will tell you right now, there are the parts to build one just outside my studio right now. I found an old radio, and I've got the effect pedals that you use to put the audio through to set up. And so at some point, I will have one that I'm going to try out with my current SB7. So we'll see how it goes. But I've not been, again, like with you, it's like, to me, it hides a little too much of the words that I want to hear.
Yes.
And for me, like, one of the things that always bothers me, I have a friend, Lisa, right? And she works in radio, and we both know her very well. And a lot of times she will record audio not using her headphones. And I'll be like, well, but then you don't know what it really sounds like while you're doing it, or she will have her levels very low. And I understand people have sensitive ears and stuff, but I'm from the school. I really want to know what my microphone is picking up. So I have good headphones. I've got the level where I need it to be. That's how I want to hear things. Yes. And when anything somewhat stops me from hearing it the way I need to, it becomes kind of cumbersome, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Labor intensive.
There you go.
Yeah. No, I agree with you totally. I would like to try it. I would like to use it. I see it in TV shows or on YouTube much, much more than I used to see it. I would like to try it. I don't think I'm going to be a huge fan of it. I see it on the TV shows, the YouTube shows, and to some degree, I'm impressed. I do hear things come through occasionally. My jury's kind of out on that one. I think it's an amazing idea. Jack Osborne loves to use the portal.
So does what's her name?
I know Katrina Weidman uses it quite a bit. And she's had, and these people, they're seasoned investigators. And I think if they didn't get some legit stuff on them, that they wouldn't be using them. I just don't know about the portal. I would love to try one and use one and see what happens. And who knows, I may actually love it. But at this point, my jury's really out on the portal. I just don't think there's enough control, if that makes sense. I think the fact that it can I want to elongate it and stretch it myself. I want to filter it myself. I would much rather it come through naked and, raw, and let me take care of it after that. I just don't know that it's going to come out the way that would be the best fit for me.
You. And that's exactly the word, right? Like, there are so many tools in our lives, and everybody has their favorite, smartphone. Maybe you're an Apple fan, maybe you're an Android fan, maybe Pixel is the one you want to be with. That's all good. Everybody has a way of doing things that fits what they need and how they need it done. And it's not saying it doesn't work for somebody, but maybe it just doesn't work for you.
Right. I'm sure every single paranormal group or pair of friends who like to do a little bit of this stuff, everybody has one. Is it right for everybody? I don't know. I think it depends on a lot of things. Like we said earlier, I think it depends on the mindset of the group. I think it depends on the situation that you're in. I think it depends on who you're trying to contact and why. A lot of people have compared it to a Ouija board. I don't know how I feel about that. I think that it's highly possible that if you're not careful, you can certainly bring through things that you may not want to bring through. Hence the reason why a few episodes ago we talked so much about protection. I think in the end, though, I think that as with anything you do during an investigation, you should be extremely mindful, extremely intelligent, and you should be very careful about what you do. The most benign investigations can turn bad in a heartbeat. And we just don't know really, none of us know really what we're working with, what we're dealing with when we go into an investigation. So as long as you stay mindful, I think it's a great tool. It's not a toy. Just like any of them, they are not toys. So we call them toys. We joke around about them. We say, "Oh, I got my new toy," but in actually, they're not. They're not toys. We just have to be really mindful. Is it like a Ouija board? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it can be. Sure, why not? You just have to be careful.
So next week we're going to try something.
Yes.
Sandy has had good luck with her spirit box in communicating with a friend who passed away.
Yes.
Had some outstanding results.
Yes.
And while I have had communication with my mom, and you were there using a K2 meter and a Mel meter,
Yep.
we are going to try to contact my mom and or my dad next week on the podcast with my SB7.
We're going to give it a shot. I'm really excited for this, Todd. Like, we tried Dave's family a couple of weeks ago, and like I said, and some cool things came through. Some stuff actually came through. And it was in context with what we were talking about. So I'm very excited for this. What do you think? Do you think we're going to be able to? If you could predict it, do you think? I mean, given
what does my gut say?
Mm-hmm.
No. Mm-hmm. But my gut always says no.
I know you do.
My gut, not because I'm a pessimist, but just because I know that doesn't matter how bad you want something to happen, it will happen only when everything is absolutely right. So
exactly.
I will be surprised.
What I am encouraged about is because last time that we did try to contact your mom.
Yeah.
Your dad was still alive at the time.
Correct.
But the last time that we did try to contact your mom, we were together.
But something was different that time. I knew she was going to come through.
You did.
I knew it. Like ahead of time, I'm like, we're going to get something here. And then, so it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting.
I know. It'll be a really great experiment. And we're bringing everybody along with us, which I think is really, really cool.
So tell a friend. Don't miss out. Next week on the Sandy and Toddcast, an actual SB7 Spirit Box investigation with yours truly and Sandy, and it should be a lot of fun.
Yes, I think it'll be a lot of fun. We did Ed Gein's family. Why couldn't we do your family?
Oh, great! Yeah, put that in the same category right there.
A little bit different.
Oh my God!
All right. So main takeaways. It's a great tool. Just be very careful when you use it and enjoy. We played last week. We played at one point. I think Dave and I. Well, when we were last week, we played the one of the EVPs we got at the Cure Cottage in Saranac Lake last November.
Yep.
We also did the Spirit Box, and we also got a few cool things with that too. So you never know.
Cool.
Never know.
Well,
all right.
Let's do our spiel here quick.
Find the Sandy and Toddcast on any of the platforms that you normally find your podcasts. Be sure to like the Sandy and Toddcast on Facebook to keep up on the latest goings-on, including each week's episode. Join our group, Stay Weirdos Friends of the Sandy and Toddcast, for even more fun. And finally, if you're thinking about starting your own podcast and just aren't sure where to start, Sandy and Todd can help with that too. Editing, producing, and consulting is what they do. Like Mindgarden Media on Facebook or email them at themindgardenmedia@gmail.com. And as always, thanks for being weird.
And get ready to spend next week with us with a very special edition of the Sandy and Toddcast, where we actually investigate Sandy from New York, Todd from Wisconsin, and Todd's parents from who knows where.
We don't know.
We don't know. Where are they?
Oh no.
It'll be great if my mom comes through and starts yelling at me because my house is dirty. Or if Dad asks me, if I've changed the oil in my car, what the price of gas is. Then, let me say this. If
they start bitching, we're good.
If that's what comes through, if Dad says, what's the price of gas, then I will know it's Marvin, right?
Right.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.